Basically, we don't have a country. This country has gone to the dogs. These guys have no idea on how to approach these issues of the economy. If the economy of a country is not working, the political arm will not work, and the social arm will not work. The more you receive, the more you are taxed. In fact, this tax regime has criminalized those people who are salaried. The people with the pay slips have actually been criminalized by these, criminalized and victimized by this William Ruto's taxation regime.
A helping hand to Haiti.
The story in Haiti and that 6 billion that we are going to spend, it is an advancement of William Ruto's principle of imperialism.
Imperialism?
Because is a new child of imperialism in Africa. But you need to go and take out your death certificate as early as now, because perhaps by the time you are dying, you'll have to pay about 50,000 for it.
It is expensive to die in Kenya, to be born in Kenya now?
Yes, it's expensive to be born and expensive to die.
And you're just in time for Business Glide, your go-to point on matters public policy analysis, business and economics at large, with yours truly, resident economist Richard Mwenja. It's such an honor today to yet again bring on board renowned advocate of the High Court of Kenya, Ndegwa Njiru, to help me unpack a number of developing issues in the world of finance and economics and matters to do with your resources as a taxpayer at large. Welcome on board, and now let's get straight to the conversation. Ndegwa Njiru.
Yeah. How are you?
The man from Gishugu who denounced his name, Markless.
Yes.
Remained with Ndegwa Njiru.
Yes.
And very recently, actually, I was having a chat with you after King Charles III visit.
Yes.
You're even saying it's high time, as a country, we denounce the name Dedan and remain with Kimathi or Washuri.
Absolutely.
In honor of Dedan Kimathi.
You know, we are trying to rediscover ourselves. And we are trying to regenerate Africa. And in 1902, there was a guy called Isaac Kaseme.
Isaac Kaseme.
Yes, Kaseme. He was a South African. He wrote a very nice works in 1902, and he was addressing the question of regenerating Africa. You know, after Africa had gone a lot of metamorphoses, a lot of phases, wars that were not involved in, we were sucked into serious problems by the West. And so he was trying to ask Africans that it has come to a time when we must regenerate ourselves. The regeneration means that we must have an overhaul, holistic approach to change. We change the manner in which we do our things, we change the manner, you know, these guys came and changed our culture, so we must regenerate ourselves. And then if you look at the works of someone like Chinua Achebe, and of course he was trying to advance the philosophy by Isaac Kaseme, and then he was asking themselves, and that is immediately after Nigeria became independent, he was asking now, at least we can say that we have been able to regain our independence, because it's not gaining, it's regaining, because we had just lost it from a courtesy of the Europeans. So he was saying, now that we are saying that we're independent, how about and how shall we deal with the minds of our brothers who are still colonized? So this element of colonization of the mind is the one that reflects in the manner in which we name ourselves, how we identify ourselves. For example, you'll get someone saying it is easier to pronounce the name Richard than Mwenja. It's easier to pronounce the name Markless than Ndegwa. So, you know, the whites came and made sure that you lose your identity. The moment you lose your identity, your name, you lose your identity, you lose your origin, and you lose yourself. So there is a very big debate of how then do we regenerate ourselves. Thus you can see somebody like Malema coming all the way from South Africa to come and participate in the launching of the Pan-African Institute.
In Kenya here.
In Kenya, because it is after the launch of the Pan-African Institute that we begin now the journey of realizing ourselves and asking ourselves, how did the Berlin Conference of 1889, 85, 84, 85 impact on us? How is it that I look at Malema as a South African other than looking at him as an African? How will I look, how is it that I look at a person just across the board as a Ugandan instead of looking as a fellow brother? And that is why I only agree with William on one thing.
Which is?
About the lifting of the visas. That one is tick. That's only the best thing he has done.
He's worth the praise.
At least that one is worth the praise, William. Is worth the praise. Because Africans must be able to move freely. From Lagos to Kenya, Kenya to Accra, Accra to Limpopo, yeah, Limpopo to Addis Ababa, sure. Addis Ababa to Cairo. You see Cairo to Tunis, you know?
True.
Tunis to Congo Brazzaville, Congo Brazzaville to Mali. People must be able to move. And when people moves, goods move, services move, commerce move.
For that particular case, he deserves a
On
medal,
that one is
a national
bingo.
award,
That
EBS.
that one I can grant unto him, that he has at least demonstrated some aspect of Pan-Africanism.
Pan-Africanism.
Yes.
Very well. I was actually surprised the other day. I met your family members.
Yes.
And none of them has an English name. That is just how deep it is in you.
That's how much
Staying
deep it
true
is.
to you.
You know, my firstborn is called Ndegwa Njiro Jr. He's not baptized. And I have no intention of taking him for baptism. Because baptism is the beginning of losing your identity. Why should it be that he needs some baptism? His mother gave him, and we gave him a name when he was born. And that is full identity. And that name that he has connects himself with the world that he has originated from. It connects himself with the world of his ancestors. Because we are ancestral.
To wrap up that, from your optic, it is Kimathi Wawashuri,
It
not
is
Dedan
Kimathi,
Kimathi.
it is Kimathi Wawashuri, it is Ndegwa Njiro, it is Ndegwa Njiro Jr.
Mudhoni wa Kirima.
It is Mudhoni wa Kirima.
Good.
That is how we identify ourselves.
Very well.
And identity is very important. Because it's after identity that you have self-realization. And people need to read the works of someone like Professor Ngugi wa Thiong'o. He speaks about the question of the language in human development. And of course, recently he was receiving an award from Katarina. When he was receiving this award from Katarina, he addressed the world in his mother tongue, in Kikuyu. And there was interpretation. Ngugi wa Thiong'o currently writes in Kikuyu. He doesn't write in English. Other works are interpretation. Because he says, when you realize your mother tongue, and when you embrace your mother tongue and appreciate your mother tongue, of course I'm not a linguistic, but I'm at least exposed slightly.
Sure.
The moment you connect yourself with your mother tongue, you start the journey of self-realization and the journey of self-actualization. That is why in my house, when kids leave school and they get into my gate, they must resort to
Kikuyu.
either speaking Kikuyu or Kikamba, because the mother is a Kamba. And that is a policy. And my son, and he goes to a good school, speaks fluent Kikuyu, speaks fluent Kikamba. I am much more happier when I hear him speak in Kikuyu or Kikamba than speaking the Queen's language.
Polished English.
I don't even mind whether he speaks Polish. What I want him to understand is understand your roots.
Very well, Ndegwa. Very well, rightly put there.
Oh, great.
Straight into the conversation of the day, and we're talking about the country
Yes.
Ramping up its efforts towards self-reliance. And as KRA says in its mantra, kulipa ushuru ni kujitegemea. Very well. So one of the conduits the government is trying to ramp up revenue collection is through tax revenue and other revenue streams like service payments for some government services, renewal of ID, replacements.
Yes, yes.
And we've seen the government really committed to take that route to build some sense of reliance and also to fix our revenue loopholes and deficits. But let me start here. The latest issue we are seeing arising and people are taking concern with is government spending parts of collected revenue to finance Kenyan mission to Haiti.
Yes.
Which is going to cost an upward of slightly 36 billion Kenyan shillings.
Yes, yes.
And you're the biggest critic of this move to send our police officers to Haiti. That money should have been redirected to other spending priorities and not that one. Do you still hold that thought?
I still hold that view that taxation must be equitably and fairly
administrated,
taxed. And it's not me saying, it's the constitution that is saying.
Oh, you have one here?
Yes, yes, I have a constitution. let me just allow me and permit me to...
Very well. As I look at this book that you've been reading about
Yes.
Kalonzo Musyoka.
Yes.
Against all odds.
Against all odds. You know, you need to read this book, Against All Odds.
Sure.
And see where His Excellency Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka has come from. You know, people say that they are hustlers. And if you read that book, you'll see who true hustler is. And where he has come from.
A true...
And the journey that he has been able to traverse.
He could turn around the fortunes of this country someday if given a chance?
His Excellency Kalonzo Musyoka, among others, because we still have other very competent individuals.
Sure.
I think within Azimio, we'll be able to determine who will be a flag bearer. But they are first among equals.
Very well.
He's equally qualified. Kioni is equally qualified.
Karua, sure.
Honorable Karua is equally qualified. And many others, including people like the former governor of Laikipia.
True.
Including people like Akina Eugene Wamalwa. They are all qualified for this job. But at least, you know, we must only have one president. They are all first among equals. And we'll have an opportunity to determine who becomes a flag bearer. Because our focus as Azimio is to remove this regime.
I actually digress so that we get to that chapter. Have you got there?
Yes, I'm there. And when you look at Article 210 of the Constitution, it says the burden of taxation must be fairly shared among Kenyans.
Very well.
So this burden must be fairly shared among Kenyans. So that then nobody or no one cross-section of the society at least feels much more burdened than others. Because there is nobody who has the much more burden or obligation or duty towards contributing to the building of this nation than others. We are all Kenyans. Never mind that we have been told some of us are shareholders and others are not, and I guess I'm in the class of those who are not shareholders. But we are being taxed. Both shareholders and non-shareholders are equally being taxed. So the law is saying, the Constitution is saying, when you tax the shareholders and when you tax the non-shareholders, at least tax them in an equitable and fair manner. But what is happening currently is that those people who are not taxpayers, those are not shareholders, they are being taxed more than the shareholders. Remember, this shareholding is for the hustlers. The I bet not most of the hustlers at least are taxable. So it is you, Mwenja, it's Binde Wanjiru, it's another person, business person at Kariobangi, Light Industries, another businessman in Utawala, another businessman in Kirenyaga, who are being taxed to take care of the hustlers. And if you can see what is happening, and you can even be able to cite cases like those of the universal health care. The policy in the universal health care is that ule anapewa pesa nyingi, achajiwe pesa mingi. The more you receive, the more you are taxed. In fact, this tax regime has criminalized those people who are salaried. The people with the pay slips have actually been criminalized by these, criminalized and victimized by this William Ruto's taxation regime.
A crime to have a job.
It's a crime to have a job because you're being told, wewe uko na kazi, lazima ulipe ili uweze kusaidia yule ambaye hana. It is not the work of the person who has a job to create the job. It's the work of the government to make sure they create jobs so that we all get into a tax bracket.
True.
And of course, and allow me to quote what Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka said, and others, that you cannot build the economy by overtaxation of few individuals.
We want growth, prosperity?
You know, those guys who are employed, they are carrying the burden of over 24 million unemployed Kenyans. So the question is, why should I be overburdened? And of course, there is even an idea that because now when you look at your pay slip, whatever is remaining is less than what the government has taken. So the people are then saying, where chukua hii nipatie tax, wacho na hii mshahara umeniwachia. Yes, it's a crime. It's like in this country now, it's a crime for you to be employed. Look at those people who are coming from abroad and getting through our airports. The kind of the harassment that is going on there is unheard of.
Tax compliance, enforcement.
The question is, must you cajole people in that manner that you're cajoling them? Must you squeeze every juice in that sugar cane? Must you? And people are really oppressed and suffering. And the worst of it all, Richard,
Sure.
is that all this taxation that is ongoing, we are not seeing where it is being implemented.
I actually cited an example of the spending priority of this collected revenue.
Yes.
Do you still take concern with us spending to a tune of 36 billion on financing the Haiti
No,
mission?
no. It is not justifiable. It is not fair. It's not justifiable. It's not godly. It's evil.
We take that money to build the
Yeah,
hospital.
because you are going to get into other people's businesses when you are not even able to feed your people.
The argument is we've always got other people lend their hand to us in terms of drought, floods,
No,
the
no, no,
US.
no, no, no,
Why
no,
not
no.
extend a helping hand to
The
Haiti?
story in Haiti and that 6 billion that we are going to spend, it is an advancement of William Ruto's principle of imperialism.
Imperialism?
Because he's a new child of imperialism in Africa.
But
The war the crisis in Haiti have been created by the Americans. And it is surprising that when he was living here for the UNGA, he was leaving Kenya for the UNGA, he never told us in advance that he's going to commit us to that kind of an engagement. Because he ought to have sought consent from us and authority from us as an agent. You must seek authority from your principals. So then you are telling the principal tells the agent, go and present me in this manner in this particular meeting. So whatever he did is contrary to the law. Number two, he is overburdening us to sort out other people's mess because he must appear like the good blue-eyed boy in Africa.
a good Samaritan.
A good Samaritan. Why must he get into good American books? Because the next day he will be at the door of the IMF to borrow with a bakuli. So you're borrowing with a bakuli from the Americans to go and 36 billion and go and invest it in Haiti. You see, it's an inverted and unheard of policy. So you go and borrow to finance the crisis in Haiti.
Beats logic.
It's illogical.
Let's advance that conversation, Sal. And now that we're talking matters, KRA trying to ramp up revenue collection, it seems that tax revenue is the goose to lay the golden egg here. Would you then say there's an alternative to it? It's just that KRA hasn't pinpointed
And by the way,
that?
Richard, you need to be taking your tea.
I will.
This is milk from my farm.
Really?
Yes. I do cows here in Nairobi.
Nairobi City?
Yes, I do.
Herding cows?
I do like.
Whose son are you though?
I do.
Who
like
does that?
I do like 200 or something liters every day, and I wake up at 3 o'clock every morning to assist in the milking. That's real and natural tea.
And paying taxes from it?
And paying taxes from it, for me to sponsor the war in Haiti.
For KRA, your message to them, is there an alternative to revenue collection other than from just tax collection?
There is no alternative because you must tax people to build our economy. The biggest problem that we have is a disconnect between we, the citizens, who are supposed to finance government, and the manner in which government is then relating with us.
Very well.
Government is relating with us in a manner like you are criminalizing the salaried people. You know, the government is dealing with us in compartments approach, that the hustlers should not be taxed because I need them for 2027 elections. I need to tell them that, you know, you the hustlers, you the proletarians, you the lupens, I was able to uplift your lives by taxing the petty bourgeois and the middle class.
Very well.
You know, it is completely unheard of.
You are a seasoned advocate of the High Court of Kenya, and you must be aware that the Kenyan High Court has suspended the Gazette notice by CS Kithure Kindiki, which sought to increase charges of some of government services.
Yes.
Say replacement of IDs, issuance of birth certificates, and so on and so forth. This is also one of the conduit the government is trying to ramp up revenue collection through fees and licenses. Would you then say the government is so desperate to build some sense of self-reliance that is not cognizant to the cry of the people in the ground?
Exactly. And I've even seen some proposals, people saying you need to go and take out your death certificate as early as now, because perhaps by the time you are dying, you'll have to pay about 50,000 for it.
It is expensive to die in Kenya, to be born in Kenya now?
Yes, it's expensive to be born and expensive to die. So guys are saying that the system should be able to craft a means of trying to issue 2 certificates simultaneously. When they issue the birth certificate, on the same day they issue the death certificates. For me, I'm going to take my death certificates mapema before it gets to 50,000 and it's charged on my estate.
I mean, Degwa, someone in Gishugu might be asking, do we still have a country here? And I'm posing that question to you.
Basically, we don't have a country. This country has gone to the dogs. These guys have no idea on how to approach these issues of the economy. If the economy of a country is not working, the political arm will not work, and the social arm will not work. So they must all act in an equilibrium. The socio-political and economic spheres of a country must work in collaboration, and they must get an equilibrium. The moment you distort and destabilize the equilibrium, the country gets into the problem that we are in. For example, we are not even able to take care of our social funds, the NSSF. We are not able to take care of our sick people. We are not able to feed ourselves. We are not able even to educate our children. We are not even able to house ourselves and clothe ourselves. So you can see how bad policies will impact on all spheres of life.
Very well.
And that is why I'm simply saying that we don't have a country.
We don't have a country.
We must reclaim this country. And reclaiming this country means that we must begin the movement of making sure that we regenerate the political consciousness that Kenyans had in 1992. That political consciousness must be a reason. This system of taxation, the system of oppression, the system of victimization must fall.
It must fall?
Yes.
The Tower of Babel has to come down?
It must fall. You know, in South Africa, and Malema will bear me witness, and the internet will bear me witness. On the 9th of March,
sure,
2015, there was a movement called Rhodes Must Fall. Cecily Rhodes was one of the worst imperialists in South Africa.
Very well.
And so there's a university called the Universities of Rhodes in South Africa. And they had a statute of Rhodes. So the student conceived that this continuous stay of this statute of Rhodes is a continuous reminder of the oppression, the aggression, the enslavement that Mzungu brought to South Africa, and issues of apartheid. So they decided that Rhodes must fall, and they began a movement of Rhodes must fall to make sure that that idea and ideology and the philosophy of oppression must be brought down. That idea of apartheid must be brought down. And students moved to make sure that they bring down Rhodes, and Rhodes was brought down. As a result of that movement, the entire university education system in South Africa was changed. Remember, in South Africa, they used to instruct students through the use of Afrikaner. Afrikaner is the Boers. The Boers are the oppressors and are the people who practiced apartheid. They are you understand?
Sure.
So they said that because of the fall of the Rhodes, a revolution began to change the education system, to do away with imperialism, to do away with issues of oppression, to do away with the issue of colonialization. And they were able to liberate. So we are simply saying, even with the pulling of the portrait of William Ruto, it is a revolution by itself. Because we are saying, when you pull it down, you are pulling down oppression. When you pull it down, you are pulling down overtaxation. When you pull it down, you're pulling down bad governance. When you pull the portrait of William Ruto from your shop, from your house, from wherever you're pulling it down, you are pulling it down you're pulling down oppression. You're pulling down imperialism. You're pulling down overtaxation. You're pulling down hunger. You're pulling down insecurity. You're pulling down bad political leadership. And that is the significance of pulling down. Just like it was in South Africa, Rhodes must fall, the portrait must fall.
The portrait must fall.
The portrait must fall.
And replace it with Ndegwa Njiru's portrait.
Replace it with your portrait. Replace it with the portrait of your children, your mother. Actually, your mother and your father, they have done much more than what William has done to you.
Or Kimathi wa Washuri.
Or Kimathi wa Washuri. You don't honor them. So the portrait must fall.
As we wrap up this show, this is a government that came into power and has oftentimes, times without number, self-proclaimed itself as a God-chosen government.
Yes.
You get it?
They conferred themselves upon themselves that honor.
Of being a God-chosen government. If you're now looking at the taxation regime right now, which is somewhat considered to be punitive, and you're looking at a potential rise in access of government services, charges therein, and you're also seeing KRA trying to squeeze the little they can get from salaried workers and other tax revenue streams. Would you then say that this same God-chosen government somewhat is now considering the same hustlers it trod on their back to power as somewhat children of a lesser God?
Yes, that's what he's doing.
Really?
Yes, and he's very good at it.
So then how again do they get into power for the second time, say in 2027, through the same hustlers that they are somewhat now betraying?
You see, the unfortunate thing is that the Kenyan society is a very gullible society. It's a society that is hoodwinked. It's a society that forgets the miseries that they have been able to go. What will happen is, because of the political trickery that these individuals have, is that they are going to bring some goodies towards the head of the regime to try and entice the people, to try and justify, oh, you see guys, we oppressed you through taxation because you wanted to do X, Y, Z. You see? So it is a high time that we must begin the process of making sure that we revolutionize the thinking of our people. That we refocus, we make sure that our people refocus on making sure that they have good governance. And good governance is the dictate of the Constitution. Good leaders is what the Constitution under Chapter 6 aspires and anticipates, is what it conceives, it's what it is intending to have. So this process must begin. And like I have said, it begins by pulling down that obstacle that you think is the obstacle. And I want to repeat again, the pulling down of the portraits is a demonstration that we are moving towards revolutionizing our thinking. It's symbolic of showing that we want a mental revolution. The mental revolution will have an impact in our political revolution, in our social revolution, and in our economic revolution.
Very well.
Yes.
Well, there you have it. That point by Ndegwa Njiru brings us to the wrap of this conversation, talking a plethora of issues in the world of business, economics at large here on Business Glide Show, your number one show that deals on matters economic issues in this country. Nuggets of wisdom to President William Ruto and his executive on how they can better run this country to unforeseen grounds, those of a higher tier than where we are currently. Time now for Fan of the Week, and I'll grant the singular honor to you to pass credits to our top Fan of the Week, that is Nerima Wako, Executive Director of Siasa Place.
Well, and we also put in Ndegwa Njiru Jr.,
who
has
sure.
actually hosted you.
And actually served me tea.
And facilitated you with a cup of tea. And that Fan of our Week, we are happy that you support us. You're happy that you view us. And you also bring in our viewers, because our viewers are integral partners in this process. And had it not been for them, we would not be at least seated where we are seated. We do this because we have viewers who cherish us. We have viewers who follow us. We have viewers who believes in us.
Very well.
And of course, the team and the crew as well.
Asante sana. And I know many people are curious to see, is this Ndegwa Njiru Jr. as brilliant and such a think tank like the father? Yeah. Next time, should we rope him in on the show?
Well, we have always wanted them to stay at the background. We don't want them to get these limelights, for their own
they have come of
privacy, yes, until they come of age.
It has always been an honor to have you on board, Ndegwa Njiru.
Thank you.
We can't wait to host you another time.
Well, I'll always be available as and when time allows.
Very well.
Because we must keep on speaking to the people.
True.
And we must speak true to power.
You just said the other time that you're just doing the Lord's work,
yes,
advancing the Lord's work.
Yes, I'm advancing Guy's work. I'm advancing God's work.
God's work.
Yeah, because it is Him who has made us the vessel, at least to go out in the wilderness and tell the people that you guys are in the wilderness. We are just like that little hummingbird who is just going around saying the bush and the jungle is burning. So what little can we do to make sure that we put out the fire?
There you have Ndego Anjiru calling himself the latter day John the Baptist, the precursor of what's gonna come ahead.
Yes.
Very well. Asante sana for tuning in. Up next on your screen is the Business Glide African Proverb of the Day. From my side, asante sana, and many thanks to the entire technical team that has put this show into a success that it has been. Until next time, God bless.